All right. Okay, I really hope everybody is ready. Once again, welcoming everybody to this wonderful workshop on artistic pitching, telling your story, crafting your bios, artist statements, and everything that you want to pitch yourself as an artist. My name is Smita Rose Vargas. I'm the programs coordinator with ICAI. And let's begin this by a land acknowledgement. ICAI acknowledges that we live, work, and make art on the Treaty 6, 7, and 8 territories of the many Indigenous and Métis Nation in Alberta, as well as all the other Indigenous community members who live within these territories. We respect the land we live on, and we also acknowledge there is unresolved history in the treaties ICAI works in. We publicly commit to advancing reconciliation and make intentional efforts towards ending systemic racism through our work in the community as we continue to celebrate and protect the diverse cultures, languages, traditions, and history that existed here before Canada. Just a brief intro about us for those who do not know about ICAI. I might be looking at multiple screens. It's just because I have different screens here, so I'm still here. So a quick intro about ICAI. ICAI, or Immigrant Council for Arts Innovation, is an arts council based in Alberta. The council was founded in 2019 with the express purpose of connecting immigrant and newcomer artists, arts administrators, and culture workers to the existing arts community in Alberta. ICAI actively encourages diversity of expression and culture through the creation of a safe and welcoming community where immigrant and newcomer arts workers feel confident to share their work and distinct cultural identities. Our vision is to transform the arts community through opportunities designed for immigrant arts and culture workers. Our mission is to connect, empower, and advocate for immigrant and newcomer arts and culture workers. Our values are that we work for equity, diversity, and inclusion. What drives us is creativity, passion, and kindness and inspiration. And through relationship, we build community. So, what do we do? We provide specialized information and resources for newcomer and immigrant arts and culture workers. We create free, inclusive, and tailored programs and networking opportunities. We provide support and mentorship for artistic growth and professional development. We advocate for immigrant arts and culture workers to have safe spaces and opportunities by educating the arts community on how to make their spaces inclusive for newcomer art workers. We do this through the many programs that we have. We have mentorship programs, which includes a longer duration NAP or Newcomer Arts Professional program. We also have our Anytime Accessible Mentors in Residence program. Then there is Artist of the Month. It's more like an award or recognition given to an artist that we have worked with us and whom we have worked with in the past. It is so that they can get, a visibility in the community and that we can celebrate them. We then have partnered exhibitions and performances. We also have workshops or information sessions like this, where you can learn new things. Then we have networking events, which are intended for building connections, meeting stakeholders, and building your network. Now, it's very easy to get connected with ICAI. All our paid program opportunities are for our members, and a membership is absolutely free. Our next, yeah, we just completed a membership orientation recently. You can follow us on our social media pages, or you can visit www.icai.online.org to fill the membership form or to know more about the orientations and other programs that we have. Oops. Okay, coming
Please.
into the let's the coming into the important part of the t today's workshop. Today we have an amazing facilitator here, Monica Gate. Let me read Monica's bio to introduce her to you. Monica has worked professionally as an actor, producer, dramaturg, playwright, and arts administrator with theatre companies across Canada, such as Workshop West Playwrights, Theatre Yes, Theatre by the Bay, Talk is Free Theatre, Thou Art Here Theatre, Shadow Theatre, and Common Ground Arts Collective. She works full-time as a freelance artist in the Edmonton theatre community and also operates her own business offering private coaching in the performing arts sector. She instructs theater and film writing workshops and courses with Workshop West Playwrights Theatre and the Film and Video Arts Society of Alberta, and is currently working as a producer and administrator for Rising Sun Theatre. She's very passionate about helping people find their voice through theater and creating fully realized careers in the arts sector. Before I pass on pat on to Monica, just a few housekeeping here. So please stay on mute unless you're talking or asking questions. Please feel free to go video off if that's how you're comfortable. Take bio breaks whenever you want to. To ask questions, either use raise hand option or leave questions and comments on the chat. We will keep a watch on those, and either Monica would address it immediately, or we can bring that up during the Q&A. Over to you, Monica.
Okay, thank you for such a lovely introduction, and thank you for using my headshot where I had my eyebrows filled in because that is the better headshot to use. Hello, everybody. It's exciting to see some familiar names and a lot of names that I don't know. Again, my name's Monica. I'm really looking forward to teaching this workshop about the housekeeping things. For me, I always encourage you to just put your questions right in the chat right when you have them. We'll have more of a Q&A at the very end, but if you have questions as we go, absolutely just ask them right away. If you're more comfortable using the chat, use the chat. If you want to raise your hand and just speak up, that's totally fine. I just encourage you not to try to save all of your questions to the end because that's usually how people forget them and then you don't get the answers to the stuff that you're looking for. This will be an interactive workshop, so there's going to be some writing exercises and things that I ask you to do. If you don't have something to write with, I would encourage you to grab it. It can just be another browser, it can be pen and paper, whatever works best for you and the way that you learn. But please do be active in the chat and ask questions if and when you have them. So while Smith is getting my little PowerPoint and everything up and ready, because I'm incapable of properly sharing my screen and working a PowerPoint while teaching at the same time, I'm really excited to be teaching a workshop on artistic pitching because I find that the biggest issue that people run into, whether they're new to our arts community or not, is finding crew for what they want to do. That's the most common complaint that I get is they have an idea, but they don't have enough of a team to get it together, or they're struggling to get funding. We're going to talk about pitching yourself as an artist. I'm going to get you pop over to the next slide, please. So we're going to cover a few different things today. The first thing that I'm going to give you is a really handy acronym to use to help when you're writing, whether it's a bio, a statement, or a project pitch. This acronym is going to work really, really well. The other thing we're going to talk about today is we're going to go over artist bios and how they're specifically about only introducing you and what you do. Whereas when we get into artist statements, it's talking about introducing your body of work. So it's less about who you are and more about what you want your work to do. And then the last thing we'll talk about is project pitches. So we're going to talk about once I've introduced myself, I've introduced my work, how do I introduce a very specific piece that I'm currently working on. You have to remember that as an artist, whether you work full-time in this industry or part-time, if you're an artist, you're a small business. So it's really important that you market yourself like you would a business, and learning to write these different pieces of text and how to have them conversationally as well is going to be really, really imperative for you as you move forward in your career. I would say that today our focus is going to be a lot on how to have an artist bio or an artist statement or a project pitch conversationally while we're networking, as opposed to getting into the specifics of, say, how you might write these for a grant application where you usually would have a bit more room. I'll get the next slide, please. So this wonderful little acronym I'm going to give you is just the word simple, because we want to keep everything simple. It's nice and easy to remember. So when you're writing your bio or your statement or your project pitch, you want to keep it simple. And that the first letter we have there, S, it stands for specific. So whether it's any one of those three things that we've talked about, when you are writing those, you want it to be very specific, and you want to avoid things like cliches. When you're describing work or when you describe what you do, you want to give us as clear of a picture as possible, and that's going to help you have clear and concise and productive conversations about your work. The next thing is you want it to be intentional. So especially if you're providing written text to somebody, or in a grant submission, or for the sake of teaching a workshop and you give someone your bio, you want everything that is in there and included in what you're sending them to have a reason to be in there. You want to really avoid getting off on tangents about, if it's in your bio, we don't need to know every single show you've ever done in your entire life, because it doesn't tell us more about you than you hitting some of these other points. When you're pitching somebody a project, we don't need to know every single detail about the entire project, what's happened, what hasn't happened, what's still to do. We just need a general overview so that it encourages conversation as opposed to educating them on every single thing that has ever happened. Which leads us into our next point. It should be memorized. Because you are an arts professional, because you are operating as a small business, it's your responsibility to come prepared to these interactions. Whether it's an application, whether it's networking in person, you want to have this stuff written and ready. No, you don't have to recite it word for word in every interaction that you have, but having a prepared pitch to give to somebody, having a professional way to introduce yourself in these different networking situations, I find a lot of the times is the difference between you productively networking and building a larger team, or getting money for your project and not. So when you look at that memorized aspect, we should be able to look at something and be able to articulate it back to somebody, as opposed to feeling like it was just a jumble of information that is hard to parse through. The next thing, of course, is that you want it to be personal. So we want to know what's unique about you as an artist, what's unique about your work, even if you're exploring a really similar theme to other people. What's the yummy part of your work? Where's the love? Where do we see your excitement, your passion about what you're doing? The next thing is that you want it to be legible. So again, you want to try to avoid things like rambling, but in terms of being legible, you also want to be really conscientious about the vocabulary that you're using. A common mistake that I see with a lot of bios or statements or project pitches or grant proposals, any of those kinds of things, is that people will use vocabulary that is so specific to their discipline. It's really difficult for somebody not from that discipline to understand what they're talking about. And when you have that, it really alienates the people that you're talking to. So you want to find that narrow line to walk where you can show your knowledge of what you're doing. You can be clear about what you're exploring without being to the point that somebody can't understand what your work is. And the last thing is that you want it to be engaged. So, is what you're presenting us, does it prompt a response? Can I see something in your work, in your statement, in your experience, in your bio, whatever it might be? Can I see something in that I am prompted to respond to? Can I see similarities between maybe my own work or other work that I'm interested in? And thinking about the being legible and being engaged going hand in hand, is the language that you're using showing your target audience? So, for example, the bio or something that I might submit to teach this workshop is very different than a bio that I might put on a grant application, because I want to cater it to the group of people I'm speaking to. The same way that you might have very different vocabulary in a project pitch if it's to a group of all other dancers and you're pitching a dance project, as opposed to doing a grant where you have to pitch that project to a bunch of people from different disciplines. And if there's any questions about any of these, pop them in the chat. Otherwise, we can take the next slide, please. So with an artist bio, there's kind of four main things that we want to hit. Again, we want to know who you are and what you do. I would say in this area, it's really helpful for you to use labels. We don't want to try to guess and figure out what your job is, especially if we're not super familiar with your discipline. So, like in my bio, I didn't just say that I work in theater or film. I was very specific about the jobs which I do within that discipline. That helps people understand a little bit more of what your work looks like. Something you might include is how you started. Some people, that looks more like a little bit of a personal anecdote. For other people's, that's where they would choose to put their education. So giving us a little background about, did you go through post-secondary education to do what you do? Did you just start and figure it out as you went? That gives us a really nice rounded vision of who you are and how you approach your work. Another thing that is really common in artist bios and really helpful is, where have we seen you? So that might look like listing shows that you've performed in. That might look like mentioning festivals that you've had your work featured at, or things that you're currently teaching. You just want to help put a face to a name when somebody is not 100% sure where they recognize you from. And the last thing, it's kind of optional the way that you go about it, but how can we connect? So that might look like you mentioning an upcoming project that you have. It might also look like you just putting your Instagram handle or your website in brackets after your name in the bio that you submit. I will say, if you're going to give a way for somebody to communicate with you and connect with you about your art, please make sure that you are sending them to a professional page. Please don't send people to personal pages or pages that you are not actively monitoring, because if they're reaching out to you, it's because they want to work with you. So you don't want a lovely little job opportunity to sit in an inbox that you never see. And I'll get the next slide, please. So I have an example artist bio for you here, and I'm going to read it out for you. This one is for a filmmaker, because I know we have lots of different artists from lots of different disciplines here. Tanvi is a multidisciplinary filmmaker who creates hybrid nonfiction projects that blend observational documentary with speculative visual essays. Her work often centers on peripheral landscapes, transitional architectures, and the quiet routines of people navigating shifting environments. Known for integrating archival fragments with long-take digital cinematography, she explores themes of memory, disappearance, and the mechanics of attention. Her films have screened at several regional festivals and are frequently used in academic settings for discussions on experimental narrative structures. Currently, she is developing a new project examining overlooked infrastructural systems. So I want you to take a sec and I want you to pop something in the chat. about either something that Tanvi's doing really well in her bio or something that is unclear or might need a little bit of work. And as you're coming up with the things that you're dropping in the chat, there's no right or wrong answers, so please don't stress about what you're putting in there. Keep in mind that simple acronym that we're using. So we want things to be specific. We want things to be intentional. We want it to be memorized. We want it to be personal. We want it to be legible. And we want it to be engaged. Does anyone have any ideas? And also, if you would prefer to just raise your hand and speak up, that's okay too. Does anyone have any ideas about things that are well done or things that need a bit of work in Tanvi's bio? You're all so shy. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of words in here that we probably don't know what they mean. And that makes it very difficult for me to engage if I don't know this discipline super well. It's very difficult for me to memorize it and regurgitate it to somebody else. If someone was like, "Oh, I'm interested in working with Tanvi. Have you worked with them before? What kind of stuff do they focus on?" I would not be able to say any of this. Yeah, absolutely. Very focused, but super, super heavy vocab, difficult to unpack. She could have included more about her background. She's told us about what she does, but we're not totally sure what her education might be. We're not sure where she's coming from. Yeah, it's great that there's references to works being screened. Absolutely. Something that I would have loved to see there is telling us what some of the regional festivals were, right? Because if we have a specific festival example that helps us pinpoint her work, overlooked infrastructural systems. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know how we're supposed to know what that means. And also, that's the last thing that she leaves in our mind to chew on about who she is and what work she's doing. And totally, how can we connect is also missing. We don't have a way to connect with her. We know that she has a new project coming up. We don't know the name of it. I definitely couldn't tell you what it's about. We don't know where it's being screened. So those are the kinds of things that, like, yes, this might look like a beautiful academic bio in that it's got lots of big fancy words in it, and we can assume that Tanvi's probably pretty educated in her field, but we don't actually know a lot about her, and we don't know how we can connect to her, and we don't feel super engaged with what she's doing. Let's pop on over to the next slide, please. And thank you for putting things in the chat. It's so exciting when we connect and engage with each other. The next thing we're going to look at is artist statements. So artist bios, that was who are you and what do you do? The way that I like to think of artist statements is why do you do what you do? And these are the four kind of things that we're going to hit in an artist statement is the why you do what you do. This is where you're going to get to talk about influences. So this is when you can talk about some other artists that you're inspired by or creative processes that you like to use. This is also where you're going to tell us what kind of stories you want to tell. And another thing we can look at is how we can identify your work. So an artist statement really is talking about your body of work as opposed to you or a specific project. Your artist statement, if it's well written, should be able to be posted alongside you and any piece of your work, and it should have connections. When I'm doing an artist statement, I might change a sentence or two or add a sentence or two, depending on what project it's going with, but the bulk of that statement is going to be the same if I've written it well, because it should connect well to me and my entire body of work that I'm doing. I'll get the next slide, please. So I have another example for you. I don't know if any of you remember Mad Libs, but they were a very, very fun thing that was peak entertainment for a long time. And it's where you have kind of a fill in the blank story where it'll ask for like an adjective or a noun or a verb. I have a little template here for you, so get ready because we're going to be writing artist statements. This example that I've given you follows this exact template. It's just that this artist is expanding and adding in the things that it's asking. So we have Eric who works in dance, and this is Eric's artist statement. Eric's work explores the tension between internal emotional states and the ways that the body unconsciously reveals them through micro gestures, weight shifts, and pauses. He uses improvised movement scores, breath-driven phrasing, and tactile objects like fabric and rope to create choreographic environments where vulnerability becomes physically visible. This focus comes from his early training in martial arts, where he learned to read intention in another person's stance before their movement, and from navigating his own history of suppressing expression in order to feel safe. Eric wants audiences to sense the emotional undercurrents inside their own bodies and consider how they communicate without words. So I want you to take a look at this artist statement example, and we're doing the same thing that we did with the artist bio. What are things that are done well in this artist statement, and what are some other things that you would like to see? And I always love looking at artist statements from dancers because usually they do not use words to express themselves. It's all movement based, right? So getting to see how they word things in their writing is really interesting. What are things that we would need a little bit of help to understand in Eric's statement? And what are things that are done well? And keep in mind, again, we're using that simple acronym. We're looking for specific, we're looking for intentional, we're looking, can we memorize any part of it? Is it personal? Is it legible? Is it engaged? I also like working with templates. I just think it's lots of fun. And you can go ahead and pop any of your answers in the chat, or you can raise your hand and you're welcome to share out loud as well. Something that I like in this example is I like that Eric mentions that his focus comes from his early training in martial arts. I would find that very engaging, especially if I wasn't coming from a dance background. That would be helpful to me because I again, when we talk about using artist statements and bios and pitches, not to educate people on every aspect of what we do, but to spark conversation, this is a way that we would be doing that. So that's really helpful. What other kinds of things are we seeing in this example that are good or that we need help with? Maybe a little bit more about how these concepts translate in his work or how we tangibly see this. Absolutely. I think that's great. We have some things that he's given us. I like that he mentions that he uses tactile objects like fabric and rope. That kind of helps us see how it might translate in his work, and how we would actually visually get to experience his work. But we don't have a ton of other details about that. You're absolutely right. It would be great to know a little bit more about that. Anything else that we notice in Eric's artist statement? We're having a hard time picturing him dance, but it's well written. Totally. Yeah, this is not a terrible artist statement. But if I closed my eyes, could I picture what he looks like while he's dancing? Could I understand what I'm about to see? Not necessarily, but you're all absolutely correct in that it's a good starting point. And there was another one. It's easy to see intentions in the psychology of this person. Yeah, I feel like I have a good understanding of some different creative processes that Eric would want to use in his work and how he approaches art in general, almost in like in a therapeutic sense. So I feel like I do know a bit more about who he is and how he uses his art. but we still have some questions. But it's a solid artist statement. Anything else? Okay, and if anybody has any ideas, just pop them in the chat. I'm going to put on a little timer for all of you. And with whatever you have to be writing with, I want you to create an artist statement for yourself using this template at the top. And then we're going to share them after. So your template says, my work explores, and then you're putting in a specific theme or concept. I use, and then you're including materials, tools, methods, whatever that may be for your discipline. Two, and then your intention. What are you doing with your art? This focus comes from, this might be where you share a personal motivation or a story. The connection in Eric's part to that point is when he's mentioning previous martial arts training. And then I want audiences to, and we want a clear goal or desired response. So I'm going to give you all 5 minutes to go through and write just a short little artist statement like this using your template. Okay? I love doing timed writing exercises. Okay, have so much fun, and I will be back in 5 minutes and we will share our artist statements. Um, if you would rather raise your hand and share because you're not a fast typer, that is absolutely okay. But let's look at some of the statements that we were able to come up with. And you can pop them in the chat or you can share them in person. And there's no judgment, and it's totally fine. And we're using this as an opportunity to help each other out and be able to try to hit those key criteria in our little acronym, making sure that we're helping each other to create artist statements that are specific and intentional and something that we can memorize. They're personal, they're legible, and they are engaged. You guys don't have to be so shy. You're allowed to put stuff in the chat. This is the best thing that I can teach you is that this is a network opportunity that you have a chance to use where you're able to connect with each other and you're able to improve the pitches that you're giving to folks. So it's something that I would really encourage you to do. Jamal, totally. Go nuts.
I can't type. I kept writing, so here
That's
it
okay.
goes. My work explores themes of identity and belonging in my poems. I use strong metaphors driven from nature and colors that tell stories of where I am and where I have been. I love telling tales from my childhood and adolescence where navigating a culture, while navigating a culture that I come from and a culture that I live in. My work has been published in recent issues of Northward Magazine, Parkland Poets Recent Anthology, and two of my published books, It's Past Midnight Somewhere and The Lavender I Lost. I want audiences to connect with me on a human level, creating a space of belonging, regardless of our cultural backgrounds or life experiences.
I love it. Yes. Also, thank you so much for sharing. That was so lovely.
Thank you.
I found that to be such a helpful artist statement. It was short and sweet, and if somebody asked me about you, I would be able to pick out things from that. I love that you mentioned that you love working with stories from your childhood. Um, I love the use of the strong metaphors and color, and it listening to your artist's statement, it painted a really nice picture in my mind for how vibrant your work must be. Uh, I love that. I
Oh,
felt
thank you.
I got great information, and again, it's I don't feel like I know every single thing about how you approach every bit of your work at every second of the day, but it sparks that response. It prompts me to want to get to know more about your work and how you do it, especially that mention of childhood stories, because
Hmm.
logically, somebody's first question is which one? What ones do you like to look at, right? So that is a fantastic example of an artist's statement to use when you're networking with people. That's bang on superb. I'm gonna
Thank
give
you.
a sec. Ooh, okay. Kim's sharing one. My work explores the human nature of belonging and acceptance. I use narration to explore the personal journey of characters as they wrestle with their inner critics and grieve parts of themselves lost to their desire for external validation. This focus comes from my own experience seeking community in a foreign land as an immigrant and learning to accept my flaws. I want audiences to see parts of themselves that need compassion and understanding. Ooh, yummy! This is great. These are such rich little paragraphs that tell us so much about how you approach your art. I love the mention of wrestling with inner critics. I love looking at that, and I think that's such a fun, uh, a fun concept to look at. And I think that that could spark really interesting conversation, especially around, um, that could be a very positive or a very negative thing. It could be a very dramatic thing. It could be a very comedic thing. So it makes me want to know more about your work. I think that rocks. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing, Kim. If anyone else wants to pop theirs in the chat or share, you're absolutely welcome to. Otherwise, I'm going to pop us over to our next slide, and we're going to talk about our final thing, which is pitching. Smith, are we able to get the next slide, please? Oh, oh my gosh. Other people are sharing. That's so exciting. Everyone if you want to take a second or so to look through those, make sure that you give people claps for sharing because we love sharing. While you're doing that, I'm going to chat a little bit about project pitches. So project pitches we've talked about introducing ourselves, we've talked about introducing a body of work, and now we're talking about introducing a specific piece of work that we're doing. Your project pitch really just answers these 5 questions. What is it? I gotta know what your project is. Why are you making it? What stage is it in? What do you need, like moving forward, whether that's something like community partners or funding or yada yada, whatever that may be. And then why now? If you can answer all of these questions, you have an entire grant ready. You're good to go. While you're making your project pitches, again, I want you to remember these tips. your goal is just to spark a conversation. It's not to educate people on every single itty bitty little thing about your project. You're not reciting the entire plot to your story or to your dance or to your film or whatever it might be. You are just giving them enough to be interested and continue talking to you about what your project is. And let's head over to the next slide, please. So, yes, if you love a Mad Lib, if it's helpful for you to use a template, you're super welcome to use this. Otherwise, you can just focus on answering those questions. And I'm going to type these questions in the chat so that you have them. Again, you have what is it? You have why am I making it? You have what stage is it in? You have what do I need moving forward, like funding, and then why now? So the same as before, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to answer those 5 questions. It's like you have a 60-second elevator pitch at the most important networking opportunity of your life. I'm going to give you 3 minutes and just focus on answering those questions. What is it? Why am I making it? What stage is it in? What do I need? And why now? And while you're doing that, I'm going to look at the 2 that were popped in the chat about the artist statements because I'm so excited. Okay. Thank you, friends. You're sorry, I should give you time to start the recording again. I get too excited. As you're finishing up your little 60-second pitch, feel free to type it in the chat, or again, you can totally raise your hand and you can share out loud if that's easier for you. I just want to say I love the 2 artist statements that were shared in the chat. I have so many pictures happening in my head while I'm reading. They're really vibrant and rich, and there's a lot to sink your teeth into, and I feel like I have such a good idea of what your guys' art looks like, and I love that. As I'm waiting for you to type your little project pitch into the chat or pop your hand up, I'm just going to share a few things for you to keep in mind moving forward as we're at the end of the presentation here. I'm going to share some little digital templates and deliverables with you. So yeah, as you move forward in your wonderful, rich, fantastic careers and all the exciting networking opportunities you have coming up, you have things like conversation starters, you have templates to help you craft some of these texts that you're going to be sharing with people, whether it's your bio, your statement, or your pitches. And you'll also get a copy of the slides from this presentation. And on those deliverables, my email is there. So if any of you ever have any questions about writing these pitches, or if any of you need some help, obviously you can absolutely always contact Aikai, or you can send me an email if you have specific questions about this kind of work. And I'm always, always, always happy to help. Is anybody brave enough to give us their 60-second elevator pitch for their project? Also, if you did this for a fake project that is mythical and does not exist, that is totally fine. And thank you for all of your focus during an hour-long workshop. We were able to get so much done in 60 minutes. And that brings me so much joy. Is anybody willing to share their project pitch? I know I only gave you 3 minutes to answer 5 questions, but it's just because I believe in you so much. So excited I could die. Okay. I'm taking my book on a book tour across Western Canada. My second collection of poems highlights stories of growing up as third culture child in the 90s. These stories deserve to be read and heard across a diverse audience, reclaiming the author's space and identity in the Canadian fabric. I'm requesting $10,000 to fund the book tour across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC while it travels through events, festivals, and author visits. Yes! Yay! I love it! I have some little golden nuggets about what you're working on. I'm super drawn to growing up as a third culture child in the 90s. I would want to hear more about that. I would want to hear more about what that looked like in your life, um how that has shaped how you approach things today. I love that you've included that you want to do a book tour. I love that you've included where you want to do that book tour. Um, Obviously, if you had more than the stingy 3 minutes I
Few
gave
minutes.
you, you
Yes.
could tell us a little bit more about.
I was rushing to complete the last few lines.
But the thing is, I know that this can feel like kind of a silly thing to do as these exercises because you only get 3 minutes. But the fact is, if you can come up with this that fast, if you are in a professional networking situation that you did not feel prepared to step into, you are ready to pitch your work. So if you can do this when I'm sitting here bullying you online, you can do it in an actual get together with other people that hopefully have so much money to give you. Um, I wish nothing but people with tens of thousands of dollars to come connect with you so that you can get your book tour across 3 different provinces. That's awesome. Anybody else that wants to share their little project pitch with us before we head out today? Again, you can put it in the chat or you can raise your hand. And my contact information is also in the chat. So if you would like to connect later, you are super welcome to, and I'm always happy to hear from folks. And can I get the final slide of the PowerPoint? There's nothing important on it. I just want everybody to see that because I want you to believe in what you do. You all have chosen a career in the arts for a good reason. It's not for money. None of us would work in this career if it was because we wanted to be rich. It's clearly because we have important stories to share and wonderful things to tell. So, above all else, if you do it with intention, you will be able to figure out what to include in these kinds of things that you're working with. I desperately want to hold out because I'm convinced that somebody is typing right now, and I don't I don't want to miss if there's one more that gets shared, but also I don't want to make people sit here in silence. But if somebody is typing, I'm so proud of you. Oh, and I guess also I can mention that I'm part of the Mentor in Residence program with ICAI. So if you ever want to connect through there for any kinds of conversations, especially things like grant writing or stuff like that, because I know not all of you work in theater, feel free to reach out to them and they will set you up with me and we can get a little meeting going to work through your applications and answer any questions that you might have. But thank you so much for all of your focus and your time and your attention and all the wonderful things that you shared in the chat. And I wish you all nothing but the best in all of your networking moving forward.
Thank you so much, Monica. Thank you for facilitating the session. It was wonderful, and I love those templates. It makes things easier. And when you share it with me, I'm going to share it with everybody who attended. And guys, in 2 to 3 days, you will see this online, and the link to the video will also be shared on our social media. So you can get and go back to the presentation if you need to. So yeah, and thank you for mentioning, Monica. I was about to say that, and you made my work easier. So please feel free to reach out to Monica if you need it through the Mentors in Residence program that we have at ICAI. You just need to go on ICAI's website, go into our programs, Mentors in Residence page, and then just fill out a form, and then we should be able to connect you with Monica. Or you can directly reach out to her on Instagram or the email that was shared here. Thank you so much for your participation. Um, I'm very thankful that everybody interacted and there was so much of sharing. Loved the session. Thank you so much, Monica. And thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye. Have a good night.